you guys.
You waited until I was recording to tell everyone that.
Ugh. Nervous.
Welcome to Teacher Quit Talk.
I'm Fraz.
I'm Redacted.
We have one teacher, an unexpected kind of teacher.
We got a teacher that got to the big leagues of teaching.
The big leagues.
What?
I think it's like very cool.
Major League Baseball.
Any hoozle. I'll let you introduce yourself. Hello.
Hello. I am so happy to be here. I listened to the podcast last night at 3 a.m. when I couldn't sleep. So this is truly a dream come true. I'm Christina Costa.
Welcome, Christina.
She's my favorite.
Thanks.
So tell us a little bit about your journey. What grade did you teach before?
I taught 6th and 7th grade science in a charter school. Then I went to grad school. When you're a grad student, you also start teaching. So I started teaching like intro level psych classes and I loved that. And then I picked up some teaching at other universities close by. And I think that's what I'm going to do when I graduate. I'm graduating this year, so I'm still a PhD student, but I'm graduating and I'm going to teach next year.
Exciting.
Yeah.
When is it? Like, when are you done?
February, I defend my dissertation. That's when I get like the fancy doctor title, and I can say it's doctor to you.
That's right.
And then official graduation's like in April.
I love that they call it defending your dissertation. I was a research assistant for a PhD candidate, and she used to like literally practice and cry every single time she tried to run through it, because she was like, I just don't want to defend it. Like, it's good. Like, can they just read it? I don't want to defend it. The verbiage that's like, you must come to this panel of wizards and defend why you deserve to be called doctor.
It is weird verbiage. I feel like it's not as scary as it sounds, or it's not supposed to be as scary as it sounds.
What's it like? What is it? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, tell us.
You have a committee of 4 people that are evaluating your work. You give them your full dissertation 10 days before you defend it. And then I just give a 30-minute talk on my research. And then they come like, why didn't you think of this? Did you do this? You should do this. And then I have a month to make those revisions. It's not scary.
They don't have like the X's like on America's Got Talent where like they just go like, no,
but thank you. I'm gonna write that down. I'm gonna bring like an X and what's the other one?
They just have the X's, and if you don't get X'd and you finish, then you're in.
They do have a golden buzzer, though. They're like, we love you.
I'm gonna bring 3 X's and also confetti guns just to be prepared.
I love
Can we come? Is there a cheerleader section or like a in court where people can just come in? Can we come?
Well, actually, yeah. I talked to my advisor about this yesterday. I said, like, can I bring people? And she was like, are you sure? Which made me hesitate. But another advisor is like, in Europe, it's really like a party. It's a celebration where people, like community members can come see your work. So I'm going to invite my students. I'm going to invite my family.
Europe does everything better. Healthcare, defending your dissertation, public transit.
Yeah.
What can't they do?
They have really good cheddar cheese and strawberries, too. If you want to know about snacks in Europe that they do better.
Everything.
But I feel like it should be a celebration. Like, you work so freaking hard and so long.
Exactly.
It's so nice to hear you say that it's not as scary as it sounds.
Yeah.
I'm very intimidated by the idea of, like, any sort of research. My friend who was in her master's was like, you have people who walk you through it. Like, they tell you what to do and they help you and they mentor you. Like, you're not just going blind into it. And I was like, I guess that is true. Like, it sounds so intimidating, but they're not going to set you up for failure, so to speak.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're not going to let you even get to that stage if you're not ready for it.
Yeah.
I've heard of people who they're like, love you so much, and you're researching the research, but maybe next year defend it because the research is not researched quite yet.
I'm curious, what did you do as an RA, as a research assistant?
Oh, okay. So it was actually really, really cool. I went to Florida State and I majored in sociology, well, technically interdisciplinary social sciences with my primary concentration in sociology, but that doesn't fit on the LinkedIn header. The person that I was an RA for, she was like in the same position you are. She was teaching some classes and getting her PhD.
Yep.
And she came to be a guest speaker at one of my classes to talk about the research she was doing about sexuality and marriage and things of that nature. And I really liked her, so she hired me to be her RA. And it was funny because she's like very type A like I am and would not trust me to do things. And at first was giving me like fake tasks to test me. And I didn't know that for like months. And so at first all I was doing was like bullshit and picking up books from the library for her and bringing them to our office. And I love this woman. If she's listening to this, no tea, no shade. After a while, she was like, so I actually hired 2 RAs at the same time and didn't tell them and have been giving you guys the same fake task, but yours are better. So you're going to be my real RA. And I was like, I have already been putting this on my resume. So she had read a ton of stuff early on in her research and like taken random notes of it, but couldn't remember like the exact book or the exact author. And it was like things that she wanted to use to defend her hypothesis. So she would like make a list of these facts that she remembered from her reading and like her random notes from years ago. And I'd have to actually find the thing that she read that she did not keep track of and then like highlight the parts that I thought were relevant to her research and then make a citation for it and then give it to her.
That is the actual worst.
I kind of liked it. I know so much about marriage and infidelity now. Like, if you want to know facts about why people cheat on their spouses, I know them.
Oh my God.
You gotta watch your people in July. July is the cheaters month. July and December. The heat and the holidays.
I got cheated on in July. Wow.
So the July one is because things are open much later. Drinking is like higher in July, like overall. And there's more community events where people are like less clothed, I guess, is some of the like hypothesis around it.
Well, there you go. I am a statistic, turns out.
The other thing we were reading that's really interesting, because I said July and December, apparently in July it's more of like a I was drunk one night stand cheating vibe, but in December it's more of like an affair, I hate my family, I need something to like escape mentally cheating vibe.
So in teaching, it's October and March that you shouldn't quit your job because it's going to suck. December and July, you should strap in and not cheat.
Hold your loved ones close.
What month is safe?
There's no safe month.
Oh my God.
But yeah, so that's what I did as a research assistant.
Oh, good for you.
Oh my gosh. What's your favorite like sociological or psychological concept to teach?
Oh, that's a good question.
And you can answer too, redacted, because you were a sociology major. I like talking about the sociology of religion. That was always very interesting to me.
That is interesting.
And like childhood development.
In Intropsych, I like talking about social psychology, like group norms, groupthink, all of that stuff, because I teach high school psych during the summer.
Ooh.
Fun.
And they're so funny. It's sort of like a camp vibe, and they have these group dances on Thursday nights. And so the week after we had social norms, they like came back to class and were like, Christina, you would not believe how many people are conforming at these dances.
That's why psych and sociology are so cool, because you can immediately, you learn something and then you just walk out the door and you see it everywhere.
Which makes it so easy to teach.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I think my favorite thing to teach in like the sociology world is city planning and facilities and the impact it has on culture. Places that are walkable and like norms around like transportation and stuff like that. And then historic redlining and like neighborhood design and like zoning laws. Like, it's really interesting to me. So like, to be on my little soapbox, if you know the old stereotype of like an old town where it's like the shop on the first floor and the family lives on the second floor, if you research it, humans living that way in a city format is how we're happiest, because we're shopping from our neighbors are shopping from us. It's like the best way to build community. But we have zoning laws that make those buildings illegal, because a building either needs to be zoned residential or zoned commercial. So like, kind of how our laws have made us worse. I would say that is my favorite part of sociology.
That's cool.
Have you found any parallels between teaching 6th graders, 7th graders, and college students? Are they in any way similar?
You know what? They are similar. All of a sudden, students get to college and we're like, oh, we can now talk for an hour straight, and they'll listen and like absorb all the information. So after being in the classroom and learning pedagogy of like teaching and being with that group, coming back to the college space and teaching, like professors don't learn how to teach. Like, unless they're in an ed program, they're never taught how to teach. And a lot of them, truth is, don't prioritize it because they're so focused on their research.
It's like a side task to them.
Yeah, it's like something they don't want to do. Like, if they can get a grant and get bought out of teaching for the year, that is ideal. Some love teaching. I'm not
totally.
shading all professors.
But it's like a pattern that you've noticed.
Yeah. So just being able to like bring activities that I would do in the middle school classroom, or like doing a jigsaw, or like different ways of learning. College students, I think, really appreciate that and are a little more engaged than just lecturing. I try really hard to steer away from lectures.
Totally. What you just said resonated with me, because I remember remember when I went into my education classes, it was the first time that I think I really had professors who knew how to teach. It was the first time that I had teachers who used any type of cooperative learning strategies. It does make such a huge difference. And that's something that I really love about your content, because you kind of showcase how you bring that into the classroom. College is really stressful. It's a like culture shock in a lot of ways. So having a teacher who really wants to make the content engaging and sticky and meaningful, that's really valuable.
Thank you. That's so sweet. I try.
I think the way we have it set up in the US is weird too. I'm sure other places have other weird things, but like just what you mentioned about how some people want to do their research and they do not want to teach other people the content. I think it's so odd that like in order to like be working for a university doing research, you kind of also are in charge of teaching people, when those are really, really different skill sets and really different passions. A lot of people are amazing at both those things, but I think we also put a lot of professors in the awkward situation of like, I haven't had training, I'm not very good at this, and I don't want to do it.
It's weird. And it's sort of like an FU to teaching, just assuming that someone who's a really, really specialized knowledge in something can just like, oh, they can also teach because they're just smart at this one thing.
Tell me a little about like, what are you researching? What's your degree in that you're getting your PhD in? Like, what's going on? What are you doing?
My PhD is in psychology, and I study teacher resilience and well-being.
You were on the right podcast.
Are you okay?
No, we both left.
We chose to not be resilient.
But I think that the research you're doing is very important. Continue. Sorry, I interrupted because I got very excited.
So what are some interesting findings that you've had?
I will just defend my dissertation right now. How about that?
Perfect.
So basically how I got into it was when I was teaching, I was telling one of my mentors from undergrad, like all these experiences I was having. And she was like, really? That happens in school? I was like, yes, you wouldn't believe it. And she studied occupational well-being. And she's like, you know what? You could really come and like study this. A lot of people are studying burnout and stress, but not a lot of people are studying resilience. So I was like, yeah, I could do that. So I came back and I studied it, and I really enjoyed it because I get to talk to teachers a lot. I interview teachers, I survey teachers. The teaching part of it sort of came unexpected. Like I really came for the research, and I was like, oh wait, it is so awesome teaching undergrads because I get to talk to them for an hour and then I leave. I don't hear from their parents. I don't hear from anybody. Nobody's like looking at my lesson plans. Like I am just out here talking about psychology. And then like the coin flipped, and I'm really excited to keep teaching. In higher ed, there are positions that are just teaching, and that's what I want.
I want to hear about your pre-PhD program days. So your days in the charter school. How did you end up there?
Boy.
What were your dreams for that? Who crushed your dreams?
The charter school crushed my dreams. No.
Said by children and teachers everywhere.
I did an alternative certification program. I was a neuroscience major, so since I had a lot of the science credits, that aligned with getting a secondary science certification, and that's how I ended up in Detroit, Michigan.
So you taught 6th and 7th grade science, you said?
Yes.
How long were you in the 6th and 7th grade classroom?
For 2 years. My second year is when I was having conversations with my advisor, and she said, you know, I really want you to come research. And so I did that. And then I kept doing the high school during the summer. So that was nice.
Very nice. So what made you, at the end of those 2 years, decide, yes, research is definitely the way? Did your experience teaching have any impact on that decision?
Definitely. So like when you apply to PhD, you usually are applying to work with a specific person, and you have some kind of idea of what you want to research. I really was motivated to help teachers by studying teachers and try to like fill this gap that I didn't feel like people were looking at. I don't think I have accomplished that, but I'm alive, I'm here, and I'm happy. So that's called the HHA.
That's the big accomplishment.
Yeah.
It's such valuable work.
A majority of the research on teachers, I would say like 95% is on teacher burnout.
Yeah.
It's like a huge problem. People want to talk about it. Like at this point, it's like we know why teachers leave. That's not the problem.
That dissertation has been defended, and let's move on to the fixing part.
Yes, that dissertation passed. Teacher resilience looks at like who's staying, or like people who leave and come back, like people who are happy and healthy at their job. Like what's going on there? Why is that happening? And how do we create more of it?
Yes. When teacher quit talk on TikTok was like a huge thing, teachers were leaving, people would come into my comment section and be like, I'm happy, like I've never had a problem. I'm like, well, I'm really jealous, but like
Good for you, Susan.
Yeah, right.
Probably because your admin buys you paper.
I know, at the bare minimum. Last year I was at a school that wanted to write me up because I took a Post-it note without signing it out. I asked the secretary if I could have a little Post-it pack.
That's wrong.
I know, and she was like, yeah, girl, take it off my desk. It's no big deal. I got chased down by like the person that oversees it.
If it makes you feel better, at my school, we weren't allowed to use the copy machine. And if you had to submit things for copies, you had to provide the paper with it.
Oh my God.
So, like, you'd have to submit it to the office for them to copy it. And it could be denied if they felt like you actually don't need that. Because they were like, you guys do too much wear and tear on the copy machine.
That's what they did with our laminator. We had to give it to a random person to laminate our stuff.
I want that job.
And she was not the best at it. They didn't have color printing at my school, so I had to go to FedEx and like have my stuff printed in color. That was like $120 to do my alphabet, and I brought it in to be laminated, and she folded the corners of it. She brought it in and was like, oh, I'm so sorry, and I had to be like,
I'm twitching.
It's okay, thank you for doing that for me. And then like she left and I cried.
It's like, can I not have one fucking thing? At the end of the day, as a teacher, I can't even get the satisfaction of putting my alphabet letters through a laminator. That's the basic tenets of teacher rights, to get the joy from the laminator. And they took that from you.
Yeah, oh, and I love the big laminator. The commercial size laminator, I'll go to Lakeshore just to do that. So I'm really excited about your research. Can we read it?
Thank you for asking. Nobody ever asks. I published a couple of things for the dissertation. There's 2 studies. One of them is published. It's a Twitter study, actually.
Cool.
The second one I'll publish after I defend it.
We have a published author on the podcast.
Christina's very cool. Like, I can't oversell enough how cool she is.
Stop.
Well, I do have a question. So I saw this maybe myth on the internet that said if you write the author of the research, that they'll just give it to you for free. But I feel like that would be unethical.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Journals are the outlets where people publish, right? So journals have fees, and then they sometimes charge people to read the stuff. None of that money goes to the author, ever. It goes to the journal. So like universities, if you have a university login, you can access journals because universities pay all the journals and the libraries to get those for free. So if you email the first author on a paper, they will just send you the PDF.
Yeah.
I do it all the time. There's also like, so my Twitter study, I purposely publish with an open source journal. So there are some journals that anybody can access. You don't need a university login. It's like a much more ethical way of publishing. But sometimes the way they get around that is sometimes they charge the authors to publish. So like they get their fees from the authors instead of the readers. But nobody anywhere should ever be paying to read research articles.
I love that you considered that. I feel like a lot of people don't know that money doesn't go to the published authors. That's crazy to me.
It's weird.
It's spooky that that's legal, and I'm disturbed. But also, fun fact, if you want to access journals, some public libraries, if you get a library card, you can log in through their portal and access them. That's what I used to do when I was teaching and I wanted shit, because my district didn't pay for journal access, but the public library system did.
Oh, that's a good workaround.
Redacted, you are such a slut for the public library system. I love it.
Oh, I am
The
too.
crazy thing is I'm using and abusing the public library system, yet I never go. It's all digital. I've never been to their physical location.
Wow.
Sometimes I call them if I need help.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do. Very helpful on the phone.
I got a letter from my librarian.
Really? Was it like, thank you for your patronage?
No, we got like an email and it was like, fill out this Google form if your kid wants to receive a letter from a librarian. And I don't have a kid, but I have me.
Yeah.
And I'm a taxpayer.
Absolutely.
They just said like, what are your interests? And I said like hippos and pranks. And then a librarian wrote me like a handwritten letter on hippo paper. And she's like, I like pranks. Do you like the pranks where people fall or where like the pranker gets pranked? And I was like, whoa, I didn't know my librarians were so deep.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's a beautiful letter.
And the hippo paper.
This is exactly what I want my taxes to be going to.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That is so
It
awesome.
was so cool. I felt so happy and special.
I love librarians. The more I learn, the more I love, you know?
I love the public library system. It's one of our last pillars of a functioning society.
I have a librarian anecdote anecdote.
Okay.
In high school, there was like some competition and I wanted to make a film project and it was called like Beauty is dot dot dot. That was the prompt. So I filmed like some community members, like what it is to them. And I went to the library and I said, "Can I film you going like shh?" Because I wanted her to say like beauty is a quiet library. And then she was like, "Actually, no, that's a harmful stereotype against librarians. We don't always need things quiet." And she wouldn't do it.
I love her. I love her for that. Weird time to take a stand, and I'm here for it. She said, "Fuck your little project. You're not going to perpetrate that narrative." Pun intended.
Wow.
It was so scary. I just went to a different library and someone did it for me.
That's hilarious.
I can't believe she like dead ass refused for your project. Instead of making it like a teaching moment and be like, "Let's make your little video about how the library can be fun," she was like, "Cut the cameras, cut the cameras, and get
Oh
out."
my gosh. Christina, do you ever think you'd go back to 6th and 7th grade, or is like that door, you're just like, no, like I love where I am?
Oh, most definitely not. But thank you for offering. In the beginning, I missed it a lot. The first 2 years of grad school, I really struggled. I would go visit my school all the time. People were like, "Do you still work here?" It was really, really hard.
Yeah.
And I thought about it, and I wouldn't have known that I loved college teaching so much unless I had tried it. But
Mhm.
now I don't think I'll ever go back. And now my sixth graders are college freshmen, and I like have some of them in my classes. So it really just came full circle, and it's like the coolest
Oh my
thing.
god.
I need to hear more about this. What's it like teaching a former sixth grader that you taught as a little young baby adult
Oh my God.
spreading their wings?
It's literally the best thing ever. I had a student email me and she was like, "Miss Costa, there's this lady, Christina Costa, teaching intro psych. Is that you?" I said, "No." No.
You're like, "I heard she's fucking crazy. It's not me. And I heard she's terrible."
Crazy. Not me. For sure not me. No, it's really, really, really cool. I love
Oh my
it.
gosh. Redacted, you need to watch Christina's content after this because she's been calling her former students and asking them for assignments and talking about like detentions that happened years ago and things like that. You would vibe with it.
My number one favorite thing to do with my students was to pull up their old elementary school records and like tease them about it in like a loving way. Like I'd be like, "So I see we got a C in social studies in second grade. What's going on there?" And we could see like the teacher remarks from like the kindergarten teachers and stuff. So I'd be like, "Plays well with others. Things change."
You make me want to teach high school sometimes because that sounds so funny.
It's just stand-up comedy with an audience that's government mandated to be there. That's all it is.
Well, that's kindergarten too. I'm hilarious to them.
It is comedy. Okay, speaking of comedy, I started doing improv. I did it just for funsies, and they try to attract and recruit a lot of people who are like doing public speaking things or like interviews. And I was like, "Oh, this will be really good for teaching," and it's so good for teaching.
Yeah.
Like when I walked in, I was like, "Yeah, like I feel like teachers are really good improvisers, and if they're not, they should learn how to be."
Yes.
It's really improved my comedic game in the classroom. My jokes are
I love
a little
that.
more, pizzazzy.
I bet they're exceptional. I couldn't believe that on your like professor rate your whatever, they told you to tone down the hippo content because I find that offensive.
You're being bullied on Rate My Professor?
Those are my course evaluations.
Oh, okay.
Students will just like call you out.
Yeah.
I'm always like, "Do you know this is going to my boss?
Right.
Do you know my boss is going to see this?"
I remember when I had people I didn't like, I'd call them out.
Yeah, but they're like tattling that she's doing karaoke, and karaoke's
The
fun.
best. We love her. And like one day she said we looked depressed, so we did karaoke. And I'm like, my boss doesn't need to know that.
You're like, keep that fucking between us.
Be
Like,
cool.
Exactly.
Oh my word. Going back to the improv thing, the very foundation of improv being yes and, you make students feel so seen in your classroom if you're able to just like, they say something totally off the wall when they raise their hand to answer and you're like, yes, and also, does anybody want to build off of what so-and-so just said?
True.
It feels very affirming and warm. I find that improv helps so many areas. Like Pixar has in-house improv classes. As they're building their stories and storyboarding, they pull these animators and creators into a room and have them do improv.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and like they're obviously renowned for their realistic storytelling and like they're doing something right, and it's interesting to me that that's part of their formula.
Yeah.
So that's my little...
I think everybody should do it. I think it's such a good skill to learn.
It
I
is.
think that's it. I think you're actually not supposed to try to be funny.
Yeah.
It's not just for people who like their friends tell them they're funny. It's like a skill that you learn, and it's really fun.
Yeah, something that I use all the time doing in content creation now is things that I learned in improv and comedy class in particular, because like you said, it's not funny if you think you're funny. It's funny if you're being earnest and truthful, because the recognition of truth is funny. That's why I think like my talking to Trump like he's a kindergarten videos do well.
Yes,
Because
I was just going to say that.
I record like 10 at a time, but like I have to get it, like the ones that do well are honest. And I think kids can see through bullshit too. Improv in the classroom is honesty, and you have such good connections with your students, at least from what I can tell from what you put out in the world. But you seem very loved, you know?
I hope so.
You are, by the host of this podcast and lots of your students, probably.
Oh, boy.
I want to hear more about your research findings.
Yeah.
Like, has there been anything that surprised you, or things that you were like, okay, teacher resiliency, did not see that coming from this area?
So the Twitter study that I did, I took the hashtag #ArmMeWith. You guys remember that? Were you teaching or on the gram?
I was on the gram. I remember that.
So it was after Parkland, after Trump said, like, we need to arm teachers, and teachers were like, no,
Yeah.
arm me with copier
Oh.
paper.
Yes.
So I downloaded all the tweets that people used hashtag #ArmMeWith the week after Parkland, and I organized, like, these are the things that our teachers are saying that they need. And surprisingly, like, a lot of them are obvious. Like, some people are like, arm me with pencils. I need pencils. Arm me with staplers. But some people were like, arm me with a better school culture, or arm me with more Black women in education, teaching. And so I divided those into categories, and I found that, like, there are things that people are talking about that is just not in the literature, like feeling safe at school. Like, I go to school and I feel safe. Diversity, climate, all of these things. So then I took those and then I measured them in a survey of like 2,000 teachers. And I also measured their job well-being. So like job satisfaction, engagement, burnout, stress, all of those things. I mean, it's not surprising to teachers when I tell my findings to teachers, they're like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, but nobody's documented it. Like, people aren't saying it, and I'm telling you. I'm like telling these important people. So safety was a big one, like being able to link teachers feeling safe to their happiness at work and also their burnout. Political support. So like the questions were like, I feel like my state values my profession, or like my governor or my president. And both of those things also link to teacher well-being. So the way teachers feel that politicians feel about them is also linked to their well-being, which again is not revolutionary, but it's not being talked about among these people studying teacher well-being.
It is revolutionary for that reason.
Yeah.
Because no one's talking about it.
With the politicians, I think that probably also impacts the way the community views teachers as well. Like, if you're living in an area where the representative of that area is like saying demonizing things about teachers, that's going to spread to parents, community members, any stakeholders you can think of.
Yeah.
What you're doing is so impactful. I mean, it's the formal version of what we try to do with the podcast, you know, trying to like bring light to issues that, like you said, nobody is talking about. Sometimes I'm sitting here thinking like there has to be studies done. Like, and we've said that before, like there has to be something, like, but there's really not a lot talking about like how we can keep teachers.
There is. And I will say, I take back saying nobody's talking about it, because like people are talking about it. You guys are talking about it. Everyone's talking about it.
But
there's no research behind it. So I always hate when I'm writing, I always have to like prove why teacher well-being matters. They're like, well, why does it matter? And I'm like, because it does. Journals always want you to link it to students to say like teacher well-being matters because when teachers are happy, students perform better. It's like we shouldn't have to make those links. We should be able to just say teacher well-being matters, but it's interesting that that link has to be made.
Yeah, that's like the automatic default of thinking everyone goes into, and like, students are important, duh. But like, let's not talk about them all the time.
I do think that it is important because something that we've gotten away from is student-centeredness. And I think that that's one reason why teachers are feeling so helpless in the classroom. We got into this for our students, and we know that they're struggling as we struggle ourselves. Like, we're kind of a canary in the coal mine a lot of times, where if we're struggling, we can pretty much bet our students are struggling. It should be enough to just say teachers are struggling, teachers are unhappy. We shouldn't have to point it back to students, but it's going to crumble the future of America if we don't take care of our teachers. And Maddie Richardson said it on this episode we just released. Happy, healthy teachers make happy, healthy students.
True.
I'm so excited for your research, not for the crumbling of the education system in America. But
We wish that you didn't have to do your research, but we're glad you are.
Right.
yeah, I forgot about that arm me with hashtag.
Yeah.
Was there any part of your research or anything you noticed in regards to how long someone had been teaching or when they entered teaching, or like did that have any impact on resiliency?
No. So in my research, I collected data on how many years teachers had been in the classroom and how old they were. Also, like their level of education. And none of the demographics mattered, which is actually interesting. And same thing with the Army With. I divided it by states because I was like, well, maybe in different states people need different things. And it was the same finding where like it didn't matter. Didn't matter if you were a 50-year-old teacher in Maine or a 22-year-old teacher in California. Like everybody's stressed, everybody needs these same resources. And so it's like an uninteresting finding, but it's also interesting that like this is a national
Yeah.
thing. We find it everywhere, no matter how many years someone's been in the classroom and no matter who they are.
I think that's validating in a lot of ways because I think a lot of people experience it that have been in the classroom for a long time. And the school that I worked at was really only veteran teachers of 20 years plus at that school and people who had been teaching less than 5 years. There was almost no one in between. I have had a ton of help from veteran teachers, and I remember sometimes when they were stressed out and they were dealing with the same things I was, they were like, I've been doing this for 30 years. Like, I should not be still getting this frustrated at testing. I shouldn't still be getting this frustrated at admin. So I think like being there doesn't necessarily make it easier. I think for some people it can even make it harder to deal with a lot of the stressors.
Yeah, that's a lot of stress.
What an interesting demographic of teachers, though.
Yes.
Like, what happened in the middle that made it so those veterans stuck it out and stayed, but that the newbies are leaving?
So it was a combination of a few factors. Some of it was because of pay. Some of them were grandfathered into a previous compensation package. And then the compensation package that I was under, you did not get a raise until you'd been there for 10 plus years. So it's kind of like was happening a little bit by design. Part of it is just because the school itself had been there so long. But I think the pay structure was ultimately why we had no one in the middle, because if you got grandfathered into this really livable pay structure, like some people there were making $90,000 a year, which I think is appropriate for someone who's very educated in that job and doing a great job at all the things. But I knew I would never get to that point. So I think that's why a lot of that middle people left.
Well, that makes sense to me.
It's shocking. When you don't pay people, they leave.
Whoa.
Who would have thunk?
Crazy.
Did you find that in your research?
I didn't ask. I should have asked people their salary.
I am very pro pay transparency, and like literally whenever my work hires someone, I'm like, here's how much I make an hour. But I think for a lot of people it's very taboo and like a turnoff. So I could see where you're conducting very like emotional research, why that might kind of kill the vibe a little bit. So what's exciting you in your future endeavor of continuing to teach college students? Like what courses do you want to teach? What's your dream? What's your vision?
I love intro psych. It is my absolute favorite. I will teach it until I'm underground. I'm also excited next semester for the first time. I'm teaching a seminar, like an upper level seminar on positive psychology. And that's like my background, my training. So I'm really, really excited to teach that. It's going to be the first time teaching it.
Is there any part of teaching college students that was more difficult than you expected, or anything that you didn't expect that surprised you in the college teaching universe?
Yes. It depends on where you're teaching. So like it varies so much, but at some schools, students are ready for college. They're freshmen. They're very motivated. They're like over motivated. You can get a class of like 20 of the most motivated kids and they have never gotten below an A in their life, or they have like never had a really hard exam before. They're like making all these social adjustments at the same time that they're making academic adjustments. So college freshmen can be challenging sometimes. A lot of like anxious office hours visits, or like, I did this wrong, or can I do this? Can I do this? Like I can totally tell when students submit papers or even sending emails. I sometimes will ask like, who taught you to email? Did you have a high school teacher that taught you to email?
Quick plug, if you're a high school teacher, I just made a lesson about how to write emails so that your children will not embarrass themselves at college.
So much.
So on my Teachers Pay Teachers, there is a lesson on how to teach high schoolers to write a professional email and to use their university email and not type their message in the subject line.
I could literally kiss you if you consented and wanted to. I always say, like, sometimes one student I said, like, can you record me and send this to your teacher? Because I am, like, so happy that they taught you this and I don't have to. But the email, that's such a good one. College freshmen, like, they're, like, learning. So I also have, like, a template on my Canvas page. But I can tell when a student's had a good high school teacher, or, like, formatting. People who know how to format paper, I'm like, someone taught you that. So there's just like different challenges. People call it the hidden curriculum. There's all these norms and expectations when you get to college. But the thing is, you're not often taught them, especially first generation students. Students will learn from their parents. If their parents went to college, well, what about students whose parents didn't go to college? There are all these, rules about like, how do I go to office hours? Should I go to office hours? Is that weird? What's appropriate? Can I ask for extensions? All those things.
Even like parents guiding you on what to do. And if your parents went to college, it's so helpful in college. But people whose parents went to college, most of the parents didn't have email when they were in college. So
Yes,
even
true.
the people in the best of circumstance getting the best guidance might not be getting that skill. I feel like going to college is like getting alien abducted and going to like a social event and not knowing any of like the cues, and then everyone just kind of like looks at you funny because you're like doing everything wrong. I did community college through dual enrollment. The first week of school, one of the professors was like, every one of your classes gave you a syllabus. If you threw it away, it's probably online. No one is going to remind you of any of those dates.
Yeah.
No one is going to tell you that that project is due. No one's going to tell you about that quiz. Nothing. And it was so helpful because I was like, oh shit, I'm used to high school where it's written on the board every day and they're going to remind you every single day of the week.
Yeah, there's a lot of little adjustments like that.
It's fascinating to hear about the college teaching universe because I think it's a very interesting time, especially for college freshmen, like you mentioned, because that was really one thing I was passionate about as a high school teacher is like, I don't want college to be the first time X, Y, or Z happens to you. Like, I want to make sure I'm training you and showing you so that when you get to that environment, you have something to reference back
That's
to.
wonderful.
I also have a question.
Yeah.
We've been seeing it in elementary school, middle school, high school, the COVID effects on students. Are you seeing students who are coming into the university setting also like struggling post-COVID, or is there any difference there?
They're just so excited to be in college. Like, they're so excited to be back in the classroom. I took medical leave during all online teaching, so I never had to teach online, and that was amazing. And so when I came back, they were like, we're in college. We're finally here. We're like sitting in a lecture hall. Like, this is so cool. They're just excited to be back. I really haven't noticed any like academic issues, social issues. People are just hyped. They're excited.
That's so cute.
That's really cute. And also, not to be like the depression vibes, but you also teach at a university, so I feel like the high school kids that really suffered academically are probably not in that environment. You know, like I'm wondering if we asked professors at a variety of different schools if they would all have different answers.
That is real.
Christina, you've been a joy. I've loved hearing about the world that you're in and how you're literally changing the world for the better, because I feel like the government doesn't listen to teachers, but maybe they will listen to published research.
Maybe.
I'm going to cite your research for everything. I'm going to be like, here's my source. Listen to me.
Oh my God, please.
I'm going to put it in my email signature and be like, if this email came across as rude, please see this article.
You must understand.
You should. That's the other frustrating thing about research. All these people are doing all these great things and then nobody's reading it. Like, the people who are reading it are just other people doing research. I try to like coax people into social media. I'm like, you could share your research on social media. Like, you could do this. My advisors are like, do I need to dance on TikTok? I'm like, no, you can like blog about it. There are just different ways to disseminate what we find.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally.
The new requirement for college professors is to learn the savage dance. You defend your dissertation and then you have to perform the savage dance.
God. Oh, thank you, Christina, so much. Like, I'm so happy that we got to just sit down and talk finally. Like,
oh my gosh, thank you, ladies. What an honor.
I got an excuse to hang out with you after following you for years. So thanks for coming on our podcast.
Oh my God, you're so sweet. You guys are so welcome.
And thank you guys for listening.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. Rate, review, turn the bell on. I think that's a thing on some apps.
That's on Twitter.
No, you can have a bell on YouTube.
Oh, I didn't know that. Nobody watches us on YouTube. Let's be real.
I watch us on YouTube, first of all.
I watch you on YouTube.
Okay, well, sorry.
Look,
sorry.
The researcher watches us on YouTube. The most professional person we've had on this podcast watches us on YouTube. And look at how you treat our guests.
YouTube erasure. Okay, I'm sorry to my YouTube watchers. Okay, we love you. Live, laugh, love, and read Christina's research because we love her.
Read Christina's research, and thank you to all the teachers out there for being resilient.
The end.
And the ones who are not teachers. Thank you for your service.
Yeah. Thank you for your service.